Hi, I'm Diane, and welcome to DMD Digest. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about plant-based protein, specifically the Impossible Burger and the Beyond Burger. And you might be thinking, well, what does this have to do with digestion and all that good stuff? Because that's always what I talk about. And I'm steering a little bit, so bear with me. But since, this has to be digested as well, I've actually had some people ask me to talk about this. And I always try to talk about health trends and different ideas and ways to be conscientious and be able to know what it is you're consuming, whether it be food, vitamin, supplement, herb, what have you. So today we're talking about Beyond Burgers and Impossible Burgers. And I know you've all heard of them. You kind of can't turn on the TV without seeing an advertisement for the Impossible Burger. And now you can get it at a lot of different fast food restaurants, as well as like a sit-down type restaurant. And they kind of started popularity back in 2016. That's when they hit the market, both Impossible and Beyond Burgers. And then have made their way across the states. And now I think most of us are pretty familiar with them. The Beyond Burgers you have to find in your grocery store, but they very, very comparable. So we're going to talk about the hype. Are they better for you? It's plant-based, so one would think that they're definitely more nutritious for you overall, and kind of like a no-brainer, which is why we're talking today. Since I'm one of those people who tends to research things, and I am the oddball who reads all the ingredient labels and then researches the ingredients and things like that, and I don't expect you to do that, hence that's why I'm here, and hopefully you're listening so you don't have to. But as I'm doing that and looking things up and trying to find out more information for myself and you, I have come to find out that actually, nutritionally speaking, there's quite a few differences. So in reference to Impossible Burger and Beyond Burger, and from now on I'm just going to call them the burgers, the plant-based burgers, because these are the two I've looked at the most, comparing it to 93% lean beef, which is pretty much about the best lean beef, to my knowledge, you can get. Ideally, if it's grass-fed, pasture-raised, grass-fed, organic, that's awesome. Not everyone has access to that or can afford that. So 93% lean beef is what we're looking at. When you cross the two and do some comparison, you'll find that the caloric content, we're going to use a 4-ounce beef patty, which is pretty much the same amount as either of those two burgers would be of the plant type. We're looking at similar calories. Both of the plant-based calories are coming in around 250 calories, maybe a little higher, just depending. The lean beef is generally like 200 to 20-ish, around there. So not huge, but some difference. The plant-based actually has a little higher caloric content. The other downside for me would be the sodium content. Both of the plant-based burgers are coming in at very high sodium, pretty much double what the beef would be. The beef sodium content would be around 70, 75, and those plant-based burgers are doubling that easy. The other thing is the fats. Just looking at the fat content, roughly 6 to 8 grams of fat in the plant-based burgers, but the fat's coming from coconut oil, cocoa butter, that type of fat as opposed to the fats that we're going to see in the beef. So the fats on the beef side, not as good, more saturated, a little more damaging, definitely kind of a no-no in regard to the American Heart Association guidelines. So those are some things to consider. Now, as far as smell, look, taste, things like that, I can't really tell you because I don't eat beef. But for those people I know who do, you're not going to be able to pass this off and say, oh, hey, come have a great beef burger with us, and, not expect anyone to say, okay, this is a little bit different based on what people have told me. But they've said that they really like them and they're very palatable. And that's partly because they're very, very highly processed. And the manufacturers have been able to manipulate that plant protein, which is predominantly a pea protein that they're using. Some of them use some soy isolates, but also a lot of other chemicals to give it the taste, the feel, the texture, and even the smell of beef grilling in your backyard. But those obviously aren't natural products. Those are all synthetic chemicals and require pretty intense processing in order to do that. So those could be downsides for people. Another thought is, what was the motivation? Why this plant-based stuff? And I think predominantly because there are a lot more vegans around these days and vegetarians. People are a little more interested in watching what they eat, being much more conscientious of what they eat, being more green, as in earth-friendly, and perhaps wanting to limit their amount of animal, not only animal intake as far as the amount of animal meats they're eating, but some people also being conscientious of the environment and looking at the fact that livestock production does create more greenhouse gas emissions, and that might be a motivation for people to consider the plant-based products as well. So we have, a few different things. When we're looking at, is it really more nutritious? I think we kind of just discussed that, and looking at, you kind of have to pick your poison, if you will, and what you want to do. Is it something that you should start eating a lot more of or eat frequently? I would suggest no, based on what I've read and the recommendations of other nutritionists, stating that, yeah, it's fine if you want to do this like once a week or so, but that should also be your frequency of how often you would eat a hamburger. So putting that into perspective. The other thing too is looking at the source of the protein. The plant-based burgers are predominantly made with pea protein, and any of you who are vegan or vegetarian and use plant-based protein powders and things, you'll find if you look at the back of the label, it generally is pea proteins. It's usually a yellow pea protein, not the green peas that you're used to getting out of the garden or in your frozen food section. But just that base of pea protein does not provide all of the essential amino acids that you have to have in order to survive, where the beef patty does have all the essential amino acids. So you would want to supplement if you were to make your diet predominantly plant-based. Another option, though, would be to look at plant-based burgers that have the pea protein and mung bean. When you combine those two, you can make a complete protein. And there are other brands out on the market. One I can think of, Prager is, I believe, how you pronounce it. And that actually is a combination of pea and mung bean, as well as other whole foods. So that's another idea that is really important. If you're going to do the plant-based proteins, you've got to make sure you've got whole foods in there, whole fruits, vegetables, grains. As far as the grains go, try to get more seeds into your diet as well, just to kind of balance everything out. So with all of that in mind, hopefully I've made this decision, or at least has broadened your knowledge base about whether or not these type of burgers are, the next best thing, and you should be ordering them all the time and completely switching from animal. I think once again, it depends what you want to do. Anything in moderation or limited, I think is probably fine. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully this wasn't more confusing and it was able to answer your questions and make you a better food shopper.